Hello, welcome to the final part of how to paint an hibiscus, and this is part 3. We're going to focus on the final details, remove the masking fluid that we've got on our background and paint the background as well. So I will help you with all of that. We're going to get straight into it. I've mixed up some bright red and a touch of Payne's grey just to start to get some bolder colours onto the petals, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Compared to part 1 and part 2, I'm definitely using a lot less water now and using a bit more pigment. This is where we're going to use the colours to try and make the petals, the whole flower, lift off the page and basically make it pop. If you have missed part 1 and part 2 of this hibiscus watercolour flower, don't worry, I'm going to leave all the details in the description box so you can check out those layers first, just in case part 3 doesn't make sense. By the way, in case we haven't met, this is Bloom Art by SW and I'm Shanaz. I've been painting for a good few years now, so I thought it'd be good to pass on some of my knowledge and help some beginners get started with watercolours. So I'm using a much thinner brush. It's actually a dagger brush, Escoda, and I think it said it's a quarter size. I'll make sure that's in the description box for you. But all I'm doing here is I'm using the same palette as I've used throughout this little picture. And I'm using a dagger brush because it's got a really nice pointy bit at the end. If you haven't got this particular brush, feel free to use a smaller brush to get those lines on there. And I'm using the picture, I'll bring the picture back up, just as a guideline only. I'm not good with painting things like realism pictures. I'm just using this particular picture as a guideline, so I know roughly where the shadows will go, roughly where the highlights will go, and I'm being really careful not to go over those highlights. So if you saw in part 2, I'd accidentally done this shadow bit. I painted it a bit wrong and we didn't touch it, we left it. All I've done is I've just defined the petal a bit more, and now I can add some detail of where the petal is behind that petal. Hope that makes sense. Just to make it a bit more clearer what the actual picture is, because I messed up a bit on there, to be completely honest. Check it out if you have missed it. You'll see I've kept my mistakes in so that you can see how I've corrected them, and if that happens with you, then you've got an idea of how to correct it as well. I've kept this particular video in real time for you as well. I haven't sped anything up like I've done in some of my previous tutorials, and because I wanted you to see exactly the exact process and how long it actually takes to paint something like this. I'm using what is called the glazing technique here. And the glazing technique is where you take a colour and you are basically putting it on top of another colour. This is why I wanted to keep some of those highlights in there so I could add this lemon yellow on top of it and still make it look like it's been hit by the sun almost. I don't know if I've achieved that or not, but it just looks a bit better with some different colours, some brighter colours, some dark colours within each petal, and it just gives it a bit more depth, a bit more 3D effect, and it just makes it look a bit more interesting rather than being one colour. The paper I'm using is Baohong 100% cotton paper. I talk a bit about that in the second part as well, why it's important to use really good quality paper as well. I'm just rinsing my brush here, and then I'm going to go back to where I've just put some of the watercolour paint down on the edges of the petal, and then just using a clean brush with a touch of water just to blend that out a bit more. I'm going to work on these leaves now. I'm mixing up some yellow, lemon yellow and ultramarine deep, just to make up another shade of green. The idea is to now do the veins on the leaves. So really light touches, use your pointy part of the brush. I'm using the Escoda brush like I mentioned earlier, and If you're not comfortable with doing the really fine lines, practice in your sketchbook or some scrap pieces of paper to start off with. It really does take a bit of practice, and it's taken me a little while to get to this stage. I didn't used to paint leaves like this. So feel free to practice if you're not comfortable. And then we're just going to do exactly the same thing again on this leaf. Use a really fine point on a brush and just create your veins like this. You don't have to add veins in, by the way. This is all optional. I just feel like it just adds a touch more detail to the overall picture. You can paint whatever you feel comfortable with, but challenge yourself a little bit. If it is something that you've not done before and you feel like you want to give it a go, do so. If you make a mistake, it really doesn't matter. It's really good that you've showed up, you're practicing. That's the main thing. I'll carry on painting the rest of the leaves, just add in the same kind of details. I don't want to add in too much detail because I still want the focus to be on the flower, on the petals. We're just adding some background in just to give the flower a bit of dimension and a bit of depth, and just to make the picture look a bit nicer. I'm just trying to decide whether to add some more leaves in or not, and I ended up adding in some more leaves because this corner or this bottom part of the picture, it just looks a bit blank and a bit bare. So I did end up adding in some more loose leaves. I just feel like it just adds a bit more to the picture, adds a bit more to the painting. If you're not comfortable with painting loose leaves, I have got a video where I help you use your own brush to figure out the strokes that your brush makes, and you can paint your own leaves. Have a look at that video and see if that's one that would help you paint your own loose leaves. Similar to the flower outlines, I do plan to do some leaf outlines that can help beginners to get started with watercolour painting leaves as well. Fall or autumn, as we call it here in the UK, is coming soon. It's just around the corner now that summer is ending, sadly. I will definitely have that planned for you in the next few weeks or so. I'm just adding a few final touches to the leaves and add in the darker areas. Just a few little touches here and there. We want to be careful we don't colour in the whole leaf, because we don't want the whole leaf areas to be dark too much. Just little touches. We can always add more if we feel like we need to add more, but to take the paint away from paper is a lot harder to do. You may have heard of the lifting technique, and it is doable when paint has dried on watercolour paper, but you do possibly risk ruining the paper. That's why I don't do it very often with paint that has dried. I'm just defining the petals a bit more so you can differentiate between each petal, and I'm using the darker colour that I made up earlier. I'm just putting that in places where I can see a shadow. If you see in the picture there, this bit that I'm working on now is the shadow area. So I'm just adding a bit more into that. Again, really, really light touches. Just put in a few drops. I mean, it's a thin brush, and so it won't add in too much. If you have got a bigger brush, then you might find it a little bit trickier. Just put in little teeny tiny drops. I'm just mixing up a bit more red and a bit more of this Payne's grey mixture, just to work a little bit on that centre, and just add in, if you can see in the picture, you can see those top two petals are a bit darker. So I'm just adding a little bit more into those petals. It's not going to be exact, and I'm okay with that. I hope you're okay with that as well. I'm just adding in a few little touches just to try and define areas a bit more. I'm just going to work a bit more on the centre of this petal and just make the centre of this petal stand out a bit more and give this a bit more of a shadowy effect as well. I've rinsed my brush here and it's not dry, it's just a tiny bit damp, and I'm just blending in the colour that I've just put down there. You see how the colour is still moving around, but it's not wet at all, it's just a tiny bit damp. I'm just checking to see if this masking fluid has dried now, and it has. So we're going to work on this background now. In part 2, I promised I was going to stick with the same colours that we've been using throughout painting this hibiscus. So I'm using the same bright red. I'm making the mixture quite watery, and I'm using a Princeton flat wash brush, and it's nice to hold the water into the brush, and it goes onto the paper. The flow of it is really nice and simple, and it's really good to do washes like this. You don't have to be ridiculously neat and tidy to do this, unless that is something you like, then fine, paint your background however you would like to do. My point is, if the picture is dry, then it doesn't matter too much if you accidentally go over a little bit of the painting that you've done. Also, whilst I'm working on this background and painting it for you, I have got a little tutorial about backgrounds. It's a bit controversial still, because some people prefer paintings with backgrounds and some people obviously prefer it without. I have done a little tutorial, and in that tutorial I basically help you decide how best to choose the colours for your background. I'll leave the link in the description box and have a look, see what you think to it. It's quite interesting seeing the masking fluid, that the paint basically repels on it, it doesn't stick to it at all, and you can see where I've put the masking fluid as well this time. When I did really small ones in part 1, when I showed you where I put the masking fluid inside the petals, inside the flower, I don't know if you could see that very clearly, but you can really clearly see that here, so I'm really pleased. So I'm just adding a bit more, I'm just adding a second layer, and you see what I mean about it doesn't matter too much if you do go over the painting a tiny bit. I'm switching back to the Escoda brush, and I'm just making up a bit more mixture. I'm just going to grab some of this yellow and I'm just going to drop it in and just let that flow, let that bloom, and see what happens, and just let that flow a little bit. You can choose whatever colour you like as well. If you want to pick different colours, absolutely fine, that's no problem at all. I just wanted to make sure I just stuck with the colours that I've got here. Again, you don't have to be too neat, just put the colours anywhere, it's going to blend nicely together. Because we've pre-wetted the background, everything will blend and bloom nicely. I've made my yellow a bit messy now, so I'm just gonna clean that just by rinsing my brush and then just picking up the top part of the yellow and just adding that in, and just keep going until you've had enough of it or you've got the colours that you want in. I'm still going to go in with this bold bright red and just let that bloom in. I'm going to go back to my flat brush by Princeton and just blend a few of those in, just to make the colours a bit more blendable. Otherwise, if we leave it to dry like that, it might turn out a little bit too spotty. So just grab a little bit of water and just blend that around. But I think the colours are just looking absolutely gorgeous. Really bright, really nice, exotic, sunflower, sunsetty type colours. Just really bold and really bright. The picture is there if you need it again, but I'm not following the background at all, and I'll probably make these into leaves, where I've put the masking fluid down. When I take that off, I think they're just going to be an extra few leaves. I'm just going in with a little bit of water on this brush and just making it all a bit more even as possible. I have painted the background quite quickly, but feel free to paint in any speed that you would prefer. please don't feel like you have to keep up with me. If you need to slow down, then slow down. If you want to paint quicker, then by all means. But if you need to slow it down, then by all means, please do that. I seem to have missed this top bit. So I'm just using a smaller brush just to make that fit into the background as well, because it looks a bit odd at the minute. It looks a bit too light. So I'm just adding that bit in. I'm not quite sure why I've missed that bit as well. Let me just get a bit of red and just fill that in. So when you've finished off the last few little bits, then we'll need to wait to make sure everything's completely dried. You can't take masking fluid off if the paint is still wet. So I would probably give it maybe 15-20 minutes just to be on the safe side. Maybe a little bit longer just to be safe if you want to, but it's quite warm at the moment, so 15-20 minutes should be okay. And I'm back. I rubbed a little bit off already and already started to make the masking fluid into leaves, but I'm going to take the rest of it off for you and show you. So I tried with my finger, didn't like the feel of it. I tried with a putty rubber just to make sure, didn't work with that, and I just went back to the classic rubber. Even though it does make quite a bit of a mess, this was the best method for me to remove the masking fluid. As I said earlier, I'm still not 100% sure I would use this particular masking fluid again. I just don't like how it's worked out in terms of rubbing it off. I have sped this bit up. I didn't want you to spend ages watching me rub the masking fluid off. So this brand of masking fluid is Schminke. It's the third time I've used it. My conclusion is I probably won't use this brand again. Let me know in the comments if you've used masking fluid before, or if this is the first time you've seen someone use masking fluid. Also, let me know in the comments how you found the series. Was it easy to follow or was it too long? Be bluntly honest. I do hope you enjoyed it. Here's the final picture and I will see you in the next video. Take care.